Yeah, welcome back to the Naija Filmmaker, a podcast for us to talk about Nigerian filmmakers, their films, and how we can build a diverse and functional industry. I'm your host, Selegot. On this episode, my guest is Ike Nnaebue. He's a film director, screenwriter, and inspirational speaker. He has directed films with international cast and has won awards at several film festivals. In 2020, his documentary project, No U-Turn, secured financing from the World Cinema Fund. We talk about pitching, his filmmaking goals, and his new creative hub, The Love Portion. If you're a new listener, you're welcome and I hope you enjoy. I just want you to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Ike Nnaebue. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a Nigerian filmmaker. I like to say that I'm a Nigerian international filmmaker because I'm a global citizen at heart and obviously a Nigerian by birth. And I am very passionate about telling African stories to the world. I'm very interested in learning about the human being. I'm a big fan of humans. So when I first started to tell stories, I thought I wanted to tell stories because I had things I thought I needed to teach. Turns out the real reason I'm a filmmaker and a storyteller is because there's so much about the world that I need to learn. So I actually make films to learn, not to teach.
Okay, thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sele. Thank you.
I looked at your, what you've been up to and what you're currently doing, and it looks like really packed, and I'm sure you've been really busy, doing a lot of stuff. Let's start with how and when you started your filmmaking journey. Can you tell us about that?
Okay. So I started officially in 2000, right?
Okay.
But before then, so I was in the church drama department. I was in the choir as well.
Yeah.
And I was outside Nigeria. I was living in the Gambia at the time, and I had an opportunity to play a lead actor in a TV series.
Yeah.
So I would say that was my first foray into film, TV, into production. I remember that I didn't really know anything about production at that time. I was just an actor on set, and it was just such a fascinating experience.
Yeah.
Because before then, I always, wanted to be a storyteller. I'd fallen in love with the art of storytelling from growing up in the village. Grandma telling a lot of stories by the fireside, and things like that. So I'd fallen in love with the power of, the power that storytelling has to change society, to shape society.
Yeah.
So I've always, growing up, just kind of had that at the forefront of my mind of the things that I would like to do with my life, so to speak. So when I got that opportunity to be on that TV series, it was such a beautiful thing. And then after the series was rested, I decided to return back to Nigeria to go and kind of study this craft. And then I went to Jos because based on the little research I did, Jos was just the best place for me. It was quiet. It was it had the Nigerian Film School. It had the TV college.
Yeah.
It was just like the place to start. So I went to Jos and I attached myself to Lenscope Media. Most of my learning was a lot of apprenticeship and all that, And then when I felt like I had, gathered enough knowledge, and then I decided to come back to Lagos and decided to pursue the career, officially and professionally.
Okay.
And that was 2000. So when I first came to Lagos, I came as a trained audiovisual producer, director, but nobody would give me a chance to direct any film because everybody wanted to know what I'd done before. I didn't have any job to show, you
Yeah.
know. So, but I wanted to work in the industry, so I had to somehow find a way to penetrate, as they say. And I figured that I could be an editor, you know. It was easy to get a job as an editor because, you know, it's rushes. If you edit it well, you're paid. If you don't edit it well, they find another person, basically. But as a director, you couldn't just risk it because if the project goes wrong at the production level, then it's gone. It's a lot of money gone down the drain, you know. So most people weren't willing to take that risk, and I sort of understood it. So I went and with the last cash I had, I think it was maybe like 7,000 naira or something. I bought, I'm sure what must have been like the cheapest computer at the computer village at the time, and got the software, the editing software, Adobe Premiere. Basically started teaching myself how to use a non-linear editor and all that. And I got to a point where I felt I was confident enough to edit a project on it. So I made a music video. Because all this while I've also been, you know, recording music as well.
Yeah.
So I made a music video and based on one of my songs and got a few friends together. You know, a friend helped me to shoot it as the DP. I directed it and I wanted to edit it. So I went to the studio, Teco Benson Studio, said I wanted to hire a studio, like rent a studio and all that. And then they wanted to give me an editor and I said I would edit it for myself. And they didn't believe me because obviously I was just a rookie.
Yeah.
And a few hours into the studio, the Teco Benson comes in and wants to see what I was doing and was blown away with what he saw. And then he made me an offer right there and then. That was my biggest first break into movies because now I became an in-house editor for such a big director at the time, Teco Benson. You know, he's still a great director, you know, for even now. So that's how I started. But then it took me 10 years of editing and pitching my ideas and pushing and hoping that somebody will give me an opportunity. It took me 10 years of not getting any opportunity to direct until I created the opportunity myself by going ahead to make a short film that I directed. And whilst I was on set of that short film, I got my first script to make a feature-length film, and it was Uche Jumbo who gave me that opportunity. I was already her editor for over a year. So we had built rapport and everything. And this project was an advocacy project. She wasn't putting in a lot of money. So she felt like she could take the risk with me. And I put my blood and everything in that project. And, you know, like they say, the rest is history.
Yeah. So you said you had to like wait 10 years, you know, editing before you got this opportunity. Like what kept you going?
Well, what kept me going was, first of all, I was earning money from editing at least. So I had something to keep me going physically at least, you know. But mentally, I just kept hoping that I would get that break, you know. And then editing helped me to learn so much about other directors and how they work. And so for me, I wasn't just an editor. I was more of like a student as well. So it was such a beautiful experience working and earning money, you know, to keep body and soul together. And at the same time, learning so much about the craft, you know, and even so much about the industry itself.
Yeah.
You know, so two things kept me going. I was earning some change and I had a very strong, hope and passion for what I really wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's impressive. And since that time, you have come on to make several feature films, including Sink or Swim, Loving Daniela. And some of these movies have gone to festivals and won international award. What made you want to take your films to the festival? What was the primary motivation?
So I've always wanted to be a global player. It's something that has always been there. I've never been the kind of a person that wanted to be a local champion, so to speak. I've always seen the world as my oyster, if you like. I have this global citizen mindset, that we're all global citizens, so I don't see any reason why the craft that I practice here should not touch people's lives in Mauritania or in China or in Mongolia, so that has always been the thinking. So traveling to festivals or submitting my film to festivals and trying to reach out to the other parts of the world, it's just something that has always been natural. It's something that just comes natural. It's not something I think too hard about,
Yeah, okay. And I guess for me, there was a film I produced in film school, a short film, and I sent it to about 30 to 40 festivals, and the selections were not impressive at all. How do you choose which festivals to submit your films to?
Do I even choose which festivals to submit? I really don't. When interestingly, I haven't actually submitted to a lot like yours. And honestly, I would say to you that was a brilliant thing to do. It doesn't matter that you didn't get a lot of selections or whatever, but at least you're on the right path, right? For me, I don't. There are just a few. I mean, honestly, when I go on Film Freeway, for instance, I'm not selective of. I'm not looking for a certain kind of festival. Maybe subconsciously, but not very consciously. I'm looking at I'm mostly looking at dates. Like, okay, when is this festival happening? I'm looking at my calendar. If they accept me, will I be able to go?
Yeah.
And sometimes even if I'll be able to go, but at least let me get the selection. And because these things have a way of actually just encouraging you and letting you know that you're on the right path and stuff like that. So honestly, I don't have any major criteria, to be honest.
Okay. So let's talk about Sink or Swim. It's a film about migration and people trying to get to Europe.
Yeah.
And you have an ensemble cast from about 6 African countries. How did you put that together?
So first of all, the credit for putting the cast together goes to Prince Richard Moby, who was the producer and was also the executive producer.
Yeah.
As a director of the project, when it came to casting, I was playing more of a consulting role. That is to say, at least I would select the cast.
Yeah.
But the producer had the responsibility to make the cast happen, and he was the one who had the vision for the ensemble, for the multi-country ensemble. He wanted to make a pan-African film, so he had that original idea, and my job as a director was to bring that vision to reality, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the fact that he had to involve a lot of people from different countries, was he a big budget film, or you guys were able to make it for a reasonable amount?
No, it was a big budget film. It had to be. By the time you start flying people from Kenya, flying people from Nigeria, flying people from Zimbabwe, even if just on the logistics alone, it's a lot of budget already, and then you have to keep these people for, I think we shot for about 20 to 25 days. I can't remember quite correctly, but yeah, we shot for quite a decent number of days. And so just the hotel alone for that, you can imagine. So it was quite, by Nigerian standard, by African standard, it was quite a good budget.
Okay, that's good. For Loving Daniela, this film went to the Las Vegas Black Film Festival, and you guys had about 3 nominations and you won the award for Best Actress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very proudly.
Yeah. And you also released this film in Nigeria and the Caribbean. How were you able to seal the Caribbean release?
So one of my executive producers had contact and access in Antigua, in the Caribbean. So that was the inroad. So we actually shot a lot of scenes in Antigua. So it just was it was natural for us to push to get distribution, in the islands and the Caribbean cinemas.
Yeah.
I think they're just the only cinema distribution company, because they're the ones who manage the cinemas as well across the islands. So it was just natural that we would push in that direction, and they liked the film, and they distributed it. So we had a cinema release in the Caribbean, and it was quite something that I'm very, very proud of, as a Nigerian filmmaker.
Yeah, well done for that.
Thank you very much.
You also started this academy, Treasure Wells Academy. What do you guys do there?
Treasure Wells Academy, it's came from the idea that a lot of people want to get into the industry, but there's really not a lot of places that people can go to get started. It's not a lot of people that have the opportunity to be able to do internship or sort of learn on the job with people. So Treasure Wells Academy is just a platform to help passionate people who want to make the switch into the industry to be able to have a platform that supports that. For now, the academy is more of a pop-up academy, because we don't do like regular session classes and so we do pop-up sessions, pop-up workshops, and master classes and things like that. But the vision is that we are going to create like a media city where one-stop place where people can actually come, learn, create, relax, and things like that, and which is what we've started to do with our hub. The first hub we just opened in Lagos, first creative hub we just opened in Lagos. So that's the vision, basically.
I mean, congrats on that hub. I saw the pictures. It's really impressive and beautiful. Looks quite serene. So we're talking about the creative hub, the Love Potion.
Yeah.
Why that name?
So when we finished putting it together, right?
Yeah.
The property and everything, and every time I'm in the place, there's this thing about love, it's just a beautiful, loving place. It's a place you just fall in love with every time you come in here. So I was like, okay, I always fall in love with this place every time I step in. Perhaps this is a love potion.
Yeah.
So that's how the name came. And it's been living true to its name. Every time anybody walks in here, they just literally fall in love,
Yeah, I guess that's very apt.
I guess so too.
Yeah.
Actually, there was as a production hub for a VOD platform that we're about to launch. So we are literally shooting a couple of series.
Yeah.
Our platform is called COT series, COT series.
Okay.
And so it's a full-blown homegrown international brand servicing the video on demand sector of the industry.
Yeah.
But we understand that a couple of players have taken very strong positions in the market that we're coming to. And we don't want to have to compete with these big players, so to speak, head to head,
Yeah.
So we try to create a niche for what we're doing. So instead of just doing movies, series, everything, we decided to just focus only on series.
Okay. And I think
Yeah,
it's needed, once this space is able to open up, then creators will have a lot more options, and then it becomes really
exactly.
competitive then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are crazy enough to believe that we can change the industry.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can.
Yeah, that's the beginning point, If you don't believe, then it will never happen.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
So now moving to the new documentary you're working on. Huge congrats
Yeah.
for the grant you got from the World Cinema Fund. It's an impressive amount of money. Well done on securing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And interestingly, that amount of money is actually maybe like about 40% of our budget.
Okay.
And the good news is that we've also gotten a lot of support from Arte France.
Yeah.
And so we have our budget completed. So we're just waiting for the lockdown to be lifted, so that movement would continued, so we can shoot, because our documentary takes us across a lot of West African borders, all the way to North Africa. So you can imagine the number of borders that we are going to be crossing, and how the lockdown has really hampered, the project in terms of delay.
Yeah.
But I think the world is opening up back again, and we may be able to get back on the road as soon as possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's a filmmaker's wish, to have all the money you need to create a project. Yeah.
It's been a long time coming. We've been pushing this whole thing, this project. Been on this project for at least 2 years. That's another thing. This level of project takes time. You just have to keep pushing it.
Yeah. And I noticed that it's a collaboration with the South African and French company.
Yeah. So the South African company are they're like the mentors. So what the South African company is a media production company. It's more like a non-profit.
Yeah.
And what they do is that they try to support African filmmakers to make their films and tell their stories. So we're working on like a collective right now, where they selected 30 filmmakers from across the continent to support and mentor, and to ensure that we make our projects. And so they're also coming in as co-production in all the projects. And then the French company came in because when Arte France wanted to support my project, one of the conditions that came with the funding is that we must have a French co-production company.
Yeah.
To work with, and it was quite interesting because the owner of the French co-production company is someone I already met during some of the workshops that we've done with the South African company called Steps.
Yeah.
And so it was someone that I already had conversations with her about. We had expressed the desires, to work with each other in the future. So it looked like the future just came faster than we thought. And so it's been a beautiful combination working with these co-producers, actually.
Yeah. And I guess these are some of the contacts you make when you attend festivals. Was that what happened with this particular project?
Yeah, but this one didn't come directly. This one actually started it from seeing an open call. So the South African company Steps made an open call asking for projects that has to do with migration and immigration, So I entered, and then I was selected, and I've been going through the process. So this was not really directly from Film Festival contact. It was just basically something I saw on the internet and took advantage of, basically.
Well done. I mean, I can't wait for it to come out. It's been interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just to backtrack a little, you mentioned that you worked for 10 years as an editor, and during this period, you were always pitching your ideas to people you are working with. What have you learned from pitching? I mean, you are doing it for 10 years. You are talking to different people. What have you learned from pitching?
It's so funny how things pan out. So I thought I'd known about pitching, and then I attended a pitching workshop in Spain last year.
Yeah.
And I realized that, oh my God, still so much to pitching that I learned. But basically, I think the most important thing about pitching is, first of all, know your audience, right?
Yeah.
So, but when I say the audience, I mean know the person you're pitching to, whether it's one person you're pitching to, or two people, or you're pitching to a room of commissioning editors or producers and directors. You need to know who is in the audience, know who you're talking to, know what is their interest.
Yeah.
So you can weave your pitch around their interest. Do you understand? For instance, if somebody is interested in making series, you don't want to be pitching a film to them. It's like you're already pitching to the wrong person. And, so knowing your audience is the first thing you must, pay attention to, whether you need to ask who introduced you to them, what kind of people they are, what they're interested in, or even ask them directly, maybe in the getting to know them stage.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the little things that they say, It might just be something someone says in a passing conversation. Somebody might be saying something like, oh, Nigeria, people are always making films. I don't know why we don't have a lot of documentaries, and, it'll be interesting to, work in, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So you already know that this person is already thinking towards documentary. So, like, if I met that kind of a person, I always have like a couple of pitches ready. So maybe I have one pitch on a film, I have another pitch on a documentary, another pitch on a series, maybe another pitch on web series. So you need to have all these pockets of pitches ready for any time you meet, so you bring the most appropriate pitch for the right person.
Definitely.
So for instance, this kind of person, you just definitely hit him with your documentary pitch. Just the fact that you're even talking documentary is already like 30% interested in what you have to say.
Yeah.
And then and then you take it from there. That's number one. Number two is know your pitch. You need to know your pitch, because you don't want to be stammering and looking for your words and looking for your whatever.
Yeah.
It's like a pitch is something you wake up middle of the night and they say, give it you just go boom, 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 like my story. And then don't tell long stories. Don't do long stories. Don't do, the mother-in-law now met the father-in-law and the villagers didn't like, and those kind of, just go straight to the meat. And every pitch should have like a story. Every pitch should have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And your end should, be something that will string somebody along. So you want them, by the time you finish, you want them to be like, okay, so what happened? So how did that happen? And so who is she and why did she get that bad? Once you start to have that question, then you know that at least you've done a good pitch,
Yeah.
But if you start to have questions like, oh, really? Wow, I didn't know that we have vampires in is it possible to have vampires in Africa? I don't know. How do you, then you failed sort of.
Yeah.
Because if I wanted to pitch you a story of vampires in Africa, I'll pitch it in a way that you don't need to bother whether we've had vampires before, because there will be elements in the pitch that can answer that question and let you know that I know that we don't have it culturally, but I want to make a film about it and you would like it, basically. So that's basically what it is.
So the key is to be succinct, and if they have questions, they'll ask you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And try to answer most of the questions that they will ask as to how possible to make the film. Try and answer the question in the pitch, right? Okay. Like if there are strong elements in your pitch, you have to also know how to achieve that, right?
Yeah.
As you pitch, because if you go and pitch, I was using Todmanland as an example, and I said if I wanted to make a film about where Todmanland Bridge gets bombed and shattered into bits and cars falling into the water and all that, I have to know how to do that, like have a plan of how to do that. So either I've spoken to special effects people and they've told me that it's possible, and they've told me what it's going to take to do that. So that when I'm making my speech, when I'm making my pitch, it's important to include those kinds of elements and to let people know that I've already forged the relationship with the studio or the individual that would make that happen, that will create the CGI and all that. Perhaps I've even done a test or something, and I know what the cost is going to be, because cost is a major factor when you're pitching a film project.
Yeah.
People need to have an idea of what kind of investment that they will be making, So yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. So it's important to be ready, with your pitch, and be ready with all the components of it, basically.
Okay, so what would you say you want to improve in the Nigerian film industry? There are a lot of things that could be better. What's the most important thing for you?
The most important thing for me is process. Okay, the industry, to be honest, I don't even know if we're growing as an industry. I think that individuals are growing, but the industry is not growing, and it's a sort of an anomaly. It's an imbalance, right?
Yeah.
So the industry is not growing for a couple of reasons. One, there is no process. People just do things anyhow. There's no process for development. There's no process for production. There's no process for pre-production. I mean, there's no all the aspects of production. There's no process for distribution. So in the end, the industry is leaving a lot of money on the table, and the industry is being shortchanged a lot, and I mean, as far back as 2014, the industry was valued at $5.1 billion, and it was by a very reputable consulting firm. But the question is, where is the money? Yeah. Where is that money? You understand?
Yeah.
The money is outside the industry, so to speak. The money is mostly with the distribution, and to be honest, the distribution, I don't consider them as part of the industry, because they're not even making any requisite investment in the industry. They're not putting money back in the industry. They're taking money out of the industry.
Yeah.
So filmmakers need to fine-tune a process that would guarantee that the money gets back to where it rightly belongs. Imagine Nollywood at the stage where we are now. We still don't have any structure for funding, for instance. Yeah. There's nothing that says if you're a Nigerian filmmaker, you have a great idea that you can apply for funding, within the industry or around the industry. I have a passion in trying to bring some of those money, a good, percentage of it, into the industry, so that actors can get better pay, directors can get better pay, better working conditions. People don't have to shoot one film in 4 days and shoot all night and all day and just to make a film. And, and because I understand that filmmaking has a lot to do with time. It's a craft. And just like every other craft, you need time, Sometimes you do it, and you realize that it didn't come out well. You should be able to go back and do it again, until you get it right. But with the way Nollywood is structured and the way the processes are now, it's impossible for people to actually even spend even enough time to shoot a scene, not to talk of going back to reshoot it. So those are some of the things that I'm very passionate about, So I was talking about the fact that the government come in once in a while and, try to make a splash and all that, and then they wonder why it looks like it's not working. Is because they do not understand that it's not just the money. You need to create the ecosystem. You need to build an ecosystem. It's a system that would... An industry is actually a culmination of systems. that work in harmony to produce products, basically, which is, in our case, we are producing content. But we don't have the ecosystem, for instance. So our hub is probably the first creative hub in Nigeria, for filmmakers and stuff like that. And we need this type of hub. We need hundreds of it right now in Nigeria, in Lagos, in Asaba, in Enugu, in the north, wherever filmmakers gather to make films, they should have like conducive studios, basically, and hubs. The Love Portion, which is our creative hub, it's like a nursery for us. It's like a place we are trying the idea, which we've already started drawing on the board, about a media city. We are going to build a media city, which is basically a bigger hub that has a lot more facilities, so that filmmakers can come in and just relax and create and then recreate, basically.
Definitely. That would be really helpful for the industry.
Yes, we will do. By God's grace, we would do it.
Amen. Yeah. So thanks, Ike, for coming on the podcast. All the best with your documentary and the VOD platform.
Thank you, Sele. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking with you this morning.
Same here.
Thank you.
We have come to the end of this episode. Please remember to leave a rating and a review. You can send me your feedback on social media. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SeleGovFilm, and the podcast also on Instagram and Twitter at the Naija Film Pod. See you on the next episode. Have a good one.